Sarah, how are you? The funeral you held for your mother was lovely. It must have been a lot to deal with in such a short time. I'm sure she would have been very happy with it. Thank you for coming to pay your respects, Emily. It means a lot to me that you came all the way to see her. It was a good chance to see Stephen and the grandkids. And what kind of mother-in-law would I be if I didn't go? Thank you. I really am grateful. I regret that you and my mom didn't have much of a chance to see each other when she was alive. Yes, it really is a shame. She was living with you, wasn't she? It was the first time I'd been inside your house, so I was surprised to see how big it was. It's a wonderful home. We already had the kids when we decided to live with my mom's, so we had it built so that it would feel more spacious and open. We knew that the boys would need more space when they grow up, so we took that into consideration too, but it feels so big and empty now that my mom is gone. That must be hard on you. But you're so lucky. Our house is cramped. I feel trapped all the time. I don't know about lucky. You're living with Stephen's second eldest brother at the moment, aren't you? Yes, and it's horrible. We're living with Thomas and his wife, but I can't bear her. I don't know why he married someone like her. She does nothing but cause trouble. Really? I haven't spent a lot of time with her before, so I don't really know what she's like. I don't know how she can call herself a wife. She always cuts corners on the chores and she complains all day long. She can't discipline her own child either. He runs around the house screaming and shouting. I can't live in a place like that. I didn't know any of that. What does your husband think? Have you spoken about it with him? That's the problem. She acts like such a good girl when he's around. When he's looking, she's the perfect daughter-in-law. She's so two-faced, it's very annoying. I guess that's why I don't feel like we can get on well. Is that so? That does sound problematic. It was a bad idea to start living with Thomas and his family to begin with. There was no way all of us would fit in such a small house. I don't know how they thought it could work. What do you mean? There's 5 of us. My husband, myself, Thomas, and his wife and son. Of course we can't survive in such a small house. It's only natural that we get stressed out by one another. We all need our own private space. I never knew that the situation was that bad. Is it really that stressful living together? Of course, I'm fine with living with Thomas since he's my own son, but I don't like that woman. She irritates me to no end. Every day there's something new to be annoyed about because she's so noisy about every single little detail. She won't even wash my or my husband's laundry with her families and expects me to do it by myself. Can you believe that? There's no point in living with them if she doesn't do anything for us. We're letting her live with us, so she should be a little more grateful. It's your husband's house, but I heard that Thomas and his wife are paying the gas and electricity bills, aren't they? It's not just the gas and electricity. They're paying for the groceries and other things, too. We provide the house and shelter, so the least they can do is pay for all the necessities. My son and his wife are paying for everything at the moment. That must make it much harder to mention that you're not happy with their attitude. I wonder what you could do. I was wondering about that, too. And I realized when I went to visit yesterday for the funeral, with your house being so big, maybe it would be a better idea if my husband and I moved in with you and Stephen. Don't you think that's a wonderful idea? That way we can spend more time with the grandkids, too. We hardly ever see them. Excuse me? My husband and I could move in with you. You've got plenty of space now that your mother's gone. You were saying how it feels big and empty earlier. I'm sure Stephen would be happy with that. I don't think that's the problem. First of all, we only just had the funeral. We built this house with the intention of living with my mom, so it's filled with memories of her. And we've already discussed this before with Stephen and your husband. I remember that we all decided that we wouldn't move in together, and that you would move in with one of Stephen's brothers instead. So you don't mind living with and taking care of your own mother, but you don't feel any obligation towards your in-laws? Do you have a problem with living with me and my husband? Like I said, I didn't decide that alone. I didn't mean anything by it, but my mother did put a lot of money into building this house too. So she had every right to live with us. She's gone now, but the kids will be getting much bigger from now on, so Steven and I have already made up our minds that we'll stick with the first decision and not live with you both. I'm sorry if I've made you feel unwelcome, but that's just what we've decided. And what would you do about your current house? Are you going to give it to Thomas and his wife? I don't want to give them our house, but your house is much bigger and it's new too. It'll be much easier for us to live in. I think it's a good idea for us to move in with you and Steven. I'm really sorry, Emily, but I don't think that's possible. Living together will be a bit difficult for a lot of reasons. Why? What's the matter? What reason could you have to not live with us? Haven't you already spoken to Steven about this? Steven himself was saying that he didn't want all of us to live together. He was quite insistent on it. He always said that he didn't want to live together with his parents. This is why I have problems with you all. All 3 of the daughter-in-laws I have, and not one of them is respectful towards me. There's always one of you saying something insensitive like that. I thought that you were better than the other 2, but you're just the same. You don't think of us as family at all, do you? You're horrible. I don't think that at all. The biggest problem is that you have dog allergies. It's got nothing to do with you personally. We just can't have you staying with us when you can have a reaction. We have 2 dogs, so it really isn't possible for you to stay with us. That's why Steven was so adamant about not living together. We've already gone over this before. I was fine yesterday, so there's no problem anymore. That was because we had the dogs stay with a friend yesterday while we had the funeral. We didn't want them causing trouble, and we knew you were coming, so we took precautions. Then the solution is simple. Why don't you let that friend of yours keep them? That way there'll be no problem for me to live with you. I'm sorry, what? You want us to just give up our dogs? Your husband's parents should be more important than some stupid dogs. Are you being difficult on purpose? If you want to keep your dogs, then you're just being selfish. Why don't you understand that you should prioritize us over everything? Please stop. I've had enough of your ridiculous comments. We won't let you live with us, and that's final. Do you realize that it's not your daughter-in-laws that have the problem, but you yourself? I know that you were living with Keith, your eldest son, until a few years ago. I also heard that you had problems with his wife, too. And that they had to go live elsewhere because of the stress she suffered. They moved out because they didn't want to live with you anymore. That wasn't my fault. You can't blame me for that. That was all her fault. She was flirting with my husband and trying to use him. I just made it clear that there are things she shouldn't do. On top of that, she didn't pay for anything when she first was living with us. She was asking us to pay half of the groceries and pay for half of the bills, just like Thomas's wife. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was requesting that we pay for things, even though we were letting her live in our house. It's not like she lacked the money. Both her and Keith were working. She could have paid for everything, but no, she was audacious enough to ask us to pay for half. I think that's normal. I don't understand what you're complaining about. Pardon? If you're going to live together, then it's only a matter, of course, that everyone puts some money forward. We were letting her live in our house. Why should we pay for anything? She should have been grateful she had a home. Why don't any of you understand that? All you want is money. My mom was paying for her own groceries and things. It was only fair since she was able to work still and had savings. It helped out a lot. She paid part of the cost of building this house and bought her own furniture instead of asking us to buy things she wanted. I don't care what your mother did, and Thomas is fine with paying for everything. Keith and his wife should have done the same. They're the ones being unreasonable. I heard that your husband is paying part of the bills at the moment. What are you talking about? Didn't you know? Because of the trouble you had with Keith and his wife, your husband's been paying for half of the bills and the groceries in secret. He's been handing it directly to Thomas. I didn't know that. Nobody told me anything about that. Why would he do that behind my back? He was apologizing to your son's wives on your behalf. Why? Why should he apologize? There's nothing to apologize for. He was apologizing because of the way you treated them and how you accused them of being gold diggers because they wanted you to pay for your own part. Even though it's not like you would be paying from your own pocket, you don't even work. So the one that would be paying is your husband. He apologized for how you forced them to cover all the bills and asked them to forgive you for your attitude. The only reason why they're being patient with you is because your husband is being so sincere. That's ridiculous. I'm right. Why should he apologize when I'm only saying what needs to be said? I just got a reply from Steven and he told me to tell you that he'll call you when he gets back home from work. Steven said that he'll call me about moving in with you. And about your inappropriate comments, I think. Are you kidding? What inappropriate comments? It's only been a week since my mom passed away, but you're already talking about moving in because our house is much nicer and bigger. Don't you think that that's a bit too insensitive? I haven't been able to call or talk to him in person about it yet, but I can tell that Steven's pretty angry. Isn't he going to talk about moving in together? Of course not. There's another major reason why he said that he never wanted you to live with us. It's not just about the dog allergy you have. It's because you stressed Keith's wife out so much that she got depressed. I haven't done anything like that. Whatever happened to that woman was her own fault. Day in, day out, whenever you saw her, all you did was complain about the things she did. You talked loudly about her behind her back and didn't give her a moment of peace. Even though she was working full-time, she still pulled off doing all the chores, cooking, grocery shopping, all because you complained that she wasn't doing enough. She worked so hard to get you to like her, but nothing worked. I heard that you often threw away the dinners that she made for you and cooked your own. No wonder Steven doesn't want you to live in the same house as me. I was still young back then, I couldn't help it. That's your excuse for driving a person to depression? Do you really think that that's acceptable? It's about time you answered for what you've done. What are you talking about? Is anyone at home with you today? Now that you mention it, it seems awfully quiet. Thomas's wife and his son are always so noisy, but I don't hear anything. I wonder if they've gone out. What about someone much closer to you? Someone much more important? Wait, I don't think my husband is home. I'm completely alone. Do you know where Richard is? He hardly ever goes out this late. What's going on? I hate to be the one to tell you, but your husband and Thomas's family have decided that they're going to move out. What? I don't understand. We have a home right here. It's small, but there's no need to buy another place. My husband and I can move in with you and everything will be perfect. They say that they're going to move into a bigger apartment, just the four of them. You can't be serious. I haven't heard anything like that. I don't think they've told you. What am I supposed to do? Where do I go? The people you consider noisy have moved out for you, so you can stay in the house you've always lived in. Legally, it's your husband's, but if it's you by yourself, I'm sure it'll feel much bigger. That's what you wanted. I'm sure you'll be more comfortable by yourself. Who's going to take care of me? What am I supposed to do? Cook and clean and do grocery shopping all by myself? Why isn't anyone picking up the phone? I don't understand. They've all abandoned me. I guess they all got tired of enduring your abuse. We don't live too close, so I've never had to spend a lot of time with you. So I haven't experienced it firsthand, but it looks like you caused a lot of suffering for the people around you. And since you have no consideration for the fact that I'm currently in mourning, I can only think that you're as self-centered as I've heard. I can empathize, but I can't imagine how your other sons' wives must have felt with you in their homes. It's unpleasant just thinking about it, so I think I'd like to keep my distance as well. I found divorce papers on the living room table. Sarah, what should I do? How can I make them come back? I can't do anything by myself. I think you should give your husband the divorce and let them live in peace. It means you have to pay all the bills and do all the housework by yourself. But that's what you get for not being thankful for all the support you've had up until now. Your husband is graciously letting you live in the house he bought after all. Why shouldn't you pay for everything yourself? Thomas and his family moved out with Richard into an apartment, leaving Emily alone in her husband's house. The apartment they moved into wasn't as big as their old home, but they were able to live in peace and stress-free. So they all got on well and took care of one another. On the other hand, Emily had no choice but to divorce her husband at a late age. She tried begging Steven and Keith for help, but her eldest son had already had enough of his own mother after she caused his wife to get depression and had cut ties with her a long time ago. He didn't answer any of her calls or her pleas for help. Steven was furious with his mother after he found out how insensitive she had been towards his wife and told her to never call them ever again. Because of her own actions and her attitude towards the people that loved her, Emily ended up living a solitary life.